Caldwell, and how would this defense be called? And a little Twitter Tuesday for all of you knuckleheads out there. We'll do it today here on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, your host of the Monday through Friday Jacksonville Jaguars podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Covered this team for about a dozen years. And one of the things that I do appreciate are people that pay attention. So we want to thank you for making us your first listen. We do the best we absolutely can to bring you the really good organic content and things that you want to know about the team every single day. And we are free on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, bring everybody along, marshmallows, hold hands, hit the subscribe button. It really, really helps us. And we thank you for supporting us as well as our sponsors. One of the key things through free agency and the draft that folks really want to know is who's Mike Caldwell and what are we going to run? Is he just going to run the Todd Bowles defense from Tampa? Are they going to blitz on fourth down the way Tampa did against the Rams and gave up that big play late in the game? What are they? Are they a base 3-4? Are they going to use Trayvon Walker this way? And who's going to be the Mike and who's going to be the off ball or the will in their two inside linebacker defense? And how are they going to line up all of these things? The answer is, I'll give you my best guess is that, yeah, he's going to do a lot of things that Todd Bowles did, because not only did he coach with Todd Bowles in Philly, he also coached with in Tampa. He was also with him in Philly, as well as he was with Arizona when Todd Bowles was in Arizona. So it seems like he's sort of been around Todd Bowles for an awfully long time, and that would give you some sort of indication that he's probably going to do a lot of the things that he's learned under Todd Bowles. He also played Mike linebacker in the National Football League. Get these names now. He played for Bill Belichick, and then he went and played in Baltimore for a great organization. So he's been around a little bit. You know, he's absolutely been around a little bit. He knows the game from a player perspective. Went to be a grad assistant in Philly, I think in 2008, 2009, not a grad assistant, but that's where he started coaching, and probably in the quality control department. And then he just kept moving up the ranks. Obviously won a Super Bowl with the Bucks, but more importantly, he really, really developed Devin White. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Devin White was a top 5 pick. So, you know, but still, we have seen a situation here in the past where the Jaguars have had top 5 picks and they did not develop them. They've had first-round picks and not develop them. So we won't sit here and act as if just because someone is supremely talented that they don't need developing, because as we all know, they really do. And if you need any proof that players, regardless of how talented they are, need to be put in the best situation and need to be coached up, look no further than your own history, because we have a bunch of them that have not been done that way. So for me, I think what you're going to see with Mike Caldwell is you're going to see, I don't care how many times I turn his phone off and notifications off, they always find a way to sneak one in on me while I'm recording. But I think what we're going to see is an aggressive defense. I do believe that they've changed the bodies and the profiles of the athletes and where they're going to line up and how they're going to line them up. Like, they're going to be really, really big and stout up front with the combination of, and I've seen different lineups that don't really reflect what I think they're going to do. What I think they're going to do is Devon Hamilton's going to start. And I was talking to my man, Demetrius Harvey, yesterday. I think Devon Hamilton's going to play at the Ndamukong Suh spot. He thinks Farukazi, the offseason acquisition, y'all saw me struggling. I had to make sure I said that correct because I've been calling my man Fadusaka. But Fadukazi, who they got from the Jets, is probably going to play a little bit less of nose guard. I think he's going to be a pure nose guard. It would surprise me because Quentin Williams did not play nose guard. Quentin Williams played 3 technique, and he lined up right next to Quentin Williams. So if they do decide to move him off the center or off that 0 or off that 1, off the shoulder of the center, then that would be paying him to do something that you haven't really seen him do, at least at his last stop. So that would surprise me a little bit. But in any event, I think they're going to be bigger, of course, along with Malcolm Brown. I think they're going to continue to be angular at the other defensive line spot, whether it's Roy Robinson Harris, especially on first and second down, or Adam Gostis, who they just re-signed, who I was glad that they brought him back. And that's a guy that's 290-ish. That's the guy that's 290-ish. That's where I think a lot of people are thinking that they're going to play Travon Walker. Trent Baalke's already said what they're going to do with Travon Walker. He's an outside linebacker. You've heard, well, they call him an edge, right? But you've heard Brinson Buckner, I believe, say, oh, no, he's going to play outside linebacker. And that would mean they're going to line it with 3 down alignment. Sometimes they'll have a base 4-man alignment, maybe with his hands down on all 4s at the end to set the edge. But most of the time, I think what you're going to see with him, you're going to see him standing up. And you're not going to know whether he's going to blitz, whether he's going to twist, whether he's going to stunt, whether he's just going to set the edge to prevent giving the quarterback an area to run to. I think he's going to tackle a lot of running backs in space. I think he's going to jam a lot of tight ends. I think he's going to fall back in coverage and get his hands on a lot of balls. But I also think you'll see him twisting and stunning and using his strength and his power and his speed to get after the quarterback through various gaps. They did a lot of that at Georgia, where he would have a guy lined up in front of him, and say if it was Jordan Davis or Devontae Wyatt or whoever, they wouldn't even hit the guy in front of him. They would twist around and do twists and stunts, or he would automatically go to the guy on the inside, nail him, and what would happen is it would bring the outside guy with him, and then what you see is Devontae Wyatt or one of those guys circling around to come in and make the play, or one of the linebackers circling around to make the play. And those are the luxury and the things that you can do when you're so big and strong and fast and powerful, is that you take up a bunch of people and allow everyone else to make plays. Now, I know there are people that want to, y'all gonna argue with me and say that's not what you use the number 1 overall pick on. No, you use the number 1 overall pick on a superior athlete, a great athlete, a guy that you imagine some of the things that you're going to be able to do with him. And he's going to make a lot of plays for you, not just sacks, but pressures, stopping guys in the backfield, and so on and so forth. The key for me for this whole thing to work is twofold. They're going to get better in the middle, in the second level, which is the linebackers. And that's another thing with Foye Oluwakan. I looked up his size. He's 6'2", 229. It's not too small. It ain't too big either, right? So he's a little bit on the slimmer side. Even though they moved him to Mike linebacker last year at Atlanta, I got a feeling you're going to see him playing more in space a little bit, because he had 5 interceptions, over the last couple of years, and he led the league in tackles. I think you're going to see him playing in space. You're going to see him where you're not letting blockers get up on him as much because he's not as big. And that's why I think they're going to man Devin Lloyd in the middle. But those things are interchangeable in the type of defense that Todd Bowles runs. They just seem to put athletes and guys who can run like the wind on the field, and they have guys up front who can take up space. Josh Allen is going to be Josh Allen. He's going to play outside. He's going to come off the edge. He's going to run around, and he's going to do some of the same things, hopefully, that he did as a rookie. But the key is, another key is the way that they play on the defensive backfield, the way that they play. I think they're going to play a lot of man, but I think they're going to play a man off on the outside to take advantage of the fact that you don't want guys running with their backs to the quarterbacks, especially in this league that has so many guys that scramble. That's where you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So I think they'll play man, a little bit of man off. I think it's going to be a split safety situation. You probably going to have a lot of single high. And if you do, it'll be split safeties with one guy cheating up a little bit towards the box and flying around to the ball. So I really do think that Andre Sisco has a chance to really do what Antoine Winfield did in that defense. I think he's fast. I think he's rangy. It's just going to be it's just going to depend how they decide to line it up and how they decide to run it with him and Jenkins at the safety position. But I think the defense is going to look very, very good. I think they're going to be able to give the Jaguars a lot of opportunities to be able to play. So Mike Caldwell is the key, and how he's going to decide to do it as a first-time defensive coordinator. I'll tell you what else is the key. You guys had some questions for me. There were a bunch of them. Okay. Let me tell you what I ended up doing. I took some people text me, some people DM me. That's fine. You can do that because we have that relationship. So I took a couple of questions that actually had a number. They were asked a number of times in a number of different ways. And the first one is, and I'm going to answer this in segment 2, the most important guys who need to step up, who didn't play a huge role last year for this team to be good this year, the guys that need to step up. I'm going to start there, and I'm going to start with a couple of offensive linemen, and I will get to that in just a second here on a Tuesday edition of Twitter Tuesday on Locked On Jaguars. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Those games last night went down to the wire, and teams are letting you know that they are not done in the NBA. Find out all the latest odds, news, sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. I bet you didn't have Canelo losing, did you? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. And where you guys start with me every day is here on Locked On Jaguars, and we are eternally grateful for you to be able to do that with us here every single day, because we're your team every day and we are free on all platforms. So Twitter question was, and it wasn't actually worded like this by both people who sent it to me, or the 3 people who sent it to me, but I will tell you this, basically giving you the crux of it. Who's going to be the most important people that need to step up this year that did not step up last year for this team? And I'm going right back to the trenches on the offensive line, because I am a firm believer that that's the one unit that if one guy plays out of step, it'll embarrass the whole unit. It really, those guys, it's tough, because generally when a wide receiver gets beat, I mean, a wide receiver doesn't play well, or he drops a ball, or a corner doesn't play well, or a safety blows a coverage, it's him. And normally you see other guys looking at him like, what are you doing? Well, sometimes things happen on the offensive line, and unless you're a guy with that really, really good eye, you don't even know who was the cause of it. Sometimes it could be the guy standing closer to the quarterback, and you're blaming him. But really, someone who watches tape will say, oh, no, it wasn't his fault. It was the other guy. So I always talk about those C's: cohesion, consistency, chemistry, and it's one more. I don't know what it is, but it ain't choreography. But sometimes it seems like it's that, because that's where guys have to really, really play well, and really have to all be on one page and have an understanding. And plus, you get free shots on your quarterback, and you don't want your guy to be banged up all the time. So it's very, very important that line play is important. And I think there are 2 guys that need to step up and figure it out. And hopefully, if they do it together, it will be even better, because they can take up 2 spots. That would be Walker Little, and that would be Jawan Taylor. Somebody has to show up and win the right tackle spot. And somebody has to be so good that the coaching staff says, you know what, we need our 5 best guys on the field. And I know you guys have heard coaches say that before. We need our 5 best guys on the field. Right tackle is already, right guard is Brandon Sheriff. Our left tackle is Cam Robinson, because we've paid him to be that. Our center is going to be Tyler Shatney or Luke Fortner. One of those guys is going to win that job, right? With all due respect to Ben Barch, if the Jaguars are going to get their 5 best players on the field, their most talented guys, somebody's going to have to play right tackle, and somebody's going to play left guard, and Ben Barch is going to have to be the swing guy between the interior 3 positions. If it's up to me, one of those guys has to prove they can play left guard. The other one has to prove he can play left tackle. I think first somebody has to prove they can play left tackle and be very, very good, not just adequate, but good. And then if the other person is fighting and scratching, because remember, iron sharpens iron. If they're beating each other up and they're going at it, and somebody go, hey, come here, move over here. Can you do this? And if they can do that, now you're cooking with grease, because now you have a couple of guys who were 2 former second round picks They're both in the 330-pound range to go along with Cam, who's that big, to go along with Sheriff, who's a little bit smaller than that, but strong as an ox. Now you're cooking with grease. And what I mean by that is you can protect your quarterback, but here's the critical part. You can run when you want to, and you can run when you have to. And you play a game of body punches and body blows that really, what it does is tire out the other team. There is nothing more beautiful to me in football. And I know a lot of people will go, well, it's the big pass over the middle, or it's a 3rd and 1 and a guy misses a tackle and a guy breaks a long run, or it's a pick six on a slant where a guy catches it, or it's a sack on 3rd down in a critical part of the game like Aaron Donald did in the Super Bowl. But to me, there is nothing more beautiful because it goes on longer than one play than to see a team sucking for wind, to see a team with their hands on their hip, to see the opponent with guys begging to come out of the game, and your offensive line is in the huddle saying, we're going to put this whooping on you, and you just going to have to take this. And they are getting 5 yards on every play, and guys are getting pancaked, and the offensive linemen and their body language when they run back to the huddle, and the quarterback's patting them on the head, and you can almost see the running backs saying, let's go. And you see the running backs doing this, like keep eating. And you see the linemen that got a little extra pep in their step, and it's halfway through the 4th quarter, and they are busting the other team in the mouth. To me, there's no sight sweeter than to know that your team is winning that way, and there's nothing the other team can do about it. That would be music to my eyes to see that happen. So to answer your question, I'm going to get greedy. I'm going to say both. One guy wins the right tackle spot, but he barely wins it, not because neither one of them's playing well. But let's just say Juwan Taylor, they say, you know what? No, let me go Walker Little. Walker Little, you want to play your right tackle. Juwan, he outplayed you a little bit, but you're one of our 4 best linemen, and we're going to stick you at left guard. Can you compete over there? I don't know if he has the bend. I don't know if he has the legs. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is they got coaches over there that are smarter than me. They got people over there that's done this forever, and I hope they figure out a way to figure that out. Or if it's the other way, if it's Juwan Taylor back out there at right tackle, and then they realize, Walker Little, yeah, you 6'6", 300 pounds, but guess what? You can play left guard. That would be the sweetest thing in the world to me. So you guys asked me that. And you also asked me another question, and I'm going to give you the answer on this on Twitter Tuesday. This one did, one of the main one came in on Twitter, but then, of course, I got a text. And I'm going against my own rules, by the way, because I said y'all give me one question. And it is one question technically, but it's about 2 people. So was the last one. But I'll answer it because it's something that I actually wanted to discuss anyway. Is there hope for Kayvon Chaisson or Jordan Smith and or to contribute this year as Jacksonville Jaguars, or is the hope gone? The hope is yes and no. I'll tell you why in just a second here on the 3rd and final segment of Locked On Jaguars after I tell you about rockauto.com. My daughter came home this weekend. She lives in Charlotte. She drove back late yesterday after visiting us for Mother's Day. And I wasn't concerned a bit because she gets car parts from rockauto.com. And rockauto.com has been doing this for over 2 decades. It's a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every single customer. They have everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Here's what you need to do. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. They have an amazing selection. They have reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need are at rockauto.com. You're going to save time and money when using Rock Auto. Hopefully you save some time too because you're hearing this podcast on your lunch break or in your car while you're driving down the street. I am Tony Wiggins here on Locked On Jaguars, your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. Now, your second listen needs to be Locked On NFL. It's a daily podcast also on the Locked On NFL page. and wherever you get your podcast. I will have a show on tomorrow with James Rapine, my partner in crime from Locked On Bengals. Make sure you check out the Locked On NFL podcast wherever you get your podcast, and it is also free on all platforms. The question was on Twitter Tuesday, is there hope for Caleb Vaughn and Jordan Smith? Yeah, there's hope. I'm going to tell you why. It's two-pronged. One, I've heard that when they signed Arden Key and we knew that they were going to take an edge, and they already have Josh Allen, when you say that's 3, so you need 4, right? But they also have DeJuan Smoot, who kind of floats back and forth on the line and standing up off the line, and then gives you a little bit of that versatility that you need. But when I found out Arden Key was mostly lining up in the room with Brenton Buckner as he was on the defensive line, and it sounded like he's going to play where Roy Robertson Harris plays, more so than standing up with the linebackers. And when somebody told me it's not going to be quite like you think it was, it's not going to be everything like you see in Tampa, they're going to really, really, really kind of curve things and use the guy's ability instead of trying to force players to play a scheme. They're going to kind of build it around their strengths. By the way, that was another question on Twitter. I didn't choose it, but I knew I was going to be able to answer that question while I was on this subject. So there you go. Then I found out, and then they took their Swiss Army knife and they said, well, we're going to teach them this, but we still going to make them do a lot of special things for us. Just going to make them. So now I'm just thinking, well, they're just getting big and long and fast, and they're just going to give people problems. That's what they're going to do. They're not just going to have this little shell defense that they're trying to run. They need a bunch of playmakers. They need guys running all over the field, guys that can create turnovers, guys with long arms, and guys that instinctively know how to respond and react and are powerful and know how to play and make open field tackles. So I said, yeah, I'm convinced that there's a spot for Jordan Smith. Jordan Smith, I see him a lot. He's 6'6", legitimately. And when I say legitimate, I mean legitimately 6'6". He's gained about 15 to 20 pounds of muscle and shoulder width, and his legs even look a little bit bigger from last year. When Trent Baalke moved up to get him, he said he needed to get in the weight room, and I think Jordan has responded. And in the limited time I've had a couple of discussions with him, Jordan has even told me he's learned way more since this new coaching staff has been here since he did all of last year. So that tells me that when people are teaching you, they haven't given up. Now, I didn't talk to anybody about Caleb Vaughn Chason. I didn't. But let me tell you something. When a team spends a first-round draft pick on you, and then they spend a number 1 pick on a guy that plays the position that you're supposed to play 2 years later, yeah, it's going to be hard for you. It's going to be rough because your money, even though it's guaranteed, if they can find somebody to take you, they probably would. He's more expensive than a guy like Jordan. And then Caleb Vaughn's what, 6'3", 6'4", maybe 240. He doesn't give you the long-term ceiling that a guy like Jordan Smith does. And outside of Trayvon and Arden Key, there aren't any other people built like Jordan on the team. So I think Jordan Smith is going to have a shot to be that 3rd or 4th guy. And here's why I say that. And here's why I say it's important. On losing teams, you always keep your best players on the field, right? On teams that win, you know the names of backup players because they're in the game a lot, because they're helping. And usually teams that win, they're always in these situations where the other team's trying to catch up. So the other team is throwing the ball, and they do a lot of rotating. Case in point, you knew who Yannick Ngakoue and Dante Fowler was, and only one of them started. Joe Smingy was a dude that was here for years, that when the Jacksonville Jaguars were winning back in the 90s, you knew his name, and they even had a little saying that every time he made a play, you knew who John Yurkovich was. There were guys that were just role players, but you knew their names. And the reason why you knew their names because the team was good. You know the names of a lot of backup players on teams because they end up giving those guys 15 plays a game. Whereas when you're a bad team, you try to leave all of your good players in because you're always playing catch up. And you know you're already bad enough. If you take one of those dudes out, there's a huge, tremendous drop-off. So, yeah, I think he does. And I don't think we can take it for granted. A guy like that getting 4.5 sacks is a big deal. Because that means if the other guys are if one guy's getting 11 and another guy's getting 8, You got a guy that's giving him 4 sacks and when he's giving him a blow. You guys ain't gonna want to hear y'all ain't gonna hear his name, but I'm gonna tell you something. Dan Scooter wasn't a good player in Jacksonville. Dan Scooter was a good player with the 49ers when Balky was out there. You knew who Patrick Willett was, right? You knew who Patrick Willis was, and you knew who Navarro Bowman was. Well, guess who was the guy that when one of those guys wasn't in the game? It was Dan Scooter, and that's why he got a big scholarship. That's why he got, I'm thinking NIL too much, but that's why he got a contract. Because you always know who the backup is. For a long time, everyone knew who the swing tackle in Dallas was. Because it's like they got an overabundance of people. We know who the swing tackle with the Dallas Cowboys are. And you know who not Fred Smoot, you know who DeJuan Smoot is now in Jacksonville because he's been that guy. He's been that guy that comes in and plays and gives you 5.5 sacks, and he's the guy you can't cut. He's the guy you hope the team constantly re-signs. I think Caleb Vaughn has probably run its course. They're going to probably take a look-see at him. I'm pretty sure he's probably still into his guaranteed money because he's a first-round pick. So you just don't want to cut him, and if you don't have offset language, still have to pay him. And maybe this new staff wants to just take a look-see and see if they can get something out of him. I don't think we've seen the best of George Smith. I think we already know what Caleb Vaughn Chason is, but I could be wrong because all I do is do a podcast. I don't coach. But we'll just have to see. On tomorrow, I'm going to try to do more player spotlights. I want to talk Travis Etienne. I want to have you guys tune in tomorrow. I'm going to talk Travis Etienne, and I'm going to give you the absolute best scenario. We're not going to talk about the worst scenario because we all know what that is. We saw that last year. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a floor with Travis Etienne also. And even that floor is not going to be as bad. It's going to be realistic, but it's not going to be as bad. But I'm not going to put no cap on him either because I think Travis Etienne absolutely has a chance to be very, very good for Jacksonville, especially in its offense. And how it all pertains to what I saw when the Eagles won the Super Bowl under Doug Peterson and how he called plays and what role I believe Travis Etienne has in that picture. We'll talk about all of that tomorrow because I know you'll be back because you make us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. Please come back. We appreciate you guys so very much. Make sure you check the show out on YouTube as well as all other platforms. And until tomorrow, we'll see you. Be careful. Take care of each other. And thank you for